Joining us, let me get you up to speed here quickly. Antonio Brown, who is being accused of sexually assaulting his former trainer, according to a lawsuit filed by the woman in Florida on Tuesday. Brittany Taylor, who says she met Brown while they were in college at Central Michigan, accuses him of 3 incidents of sexual assault in 2017, 18, including an alleged rape. Our Mike Reese says Brown is expected to practice for the first time with the Patriots today. Obviously, we just heard from Ryan Smith as well. Max, what's your reaction to this lawsuit?
My reaction is, first, when I saw the amount that the suit was for, $75,000, the fact that it got this far, usually situations like this with amounts like that get settled so that something like this doesn't happen.
Because you're saying the amount is minimal.
Because the amount is not an enormous amount for a player with Antonio Brown's salary. And this never becomes public. So it seems to me that either he refused to pay some kind of amount like that, or she on principles, like, no, this is going to a civil case. And the other thing is that he seems to me, I'm not a legal expert, obviously, but he seems to me to be in a bit of trouble based on the texts that he sent. Because in one of the texts was an admission that there was a piece of behavior while she was asleep, which by definition is non-consensual. Unless he can either claim that that's not true what he sent, he was just trying to tease her or humiliate her, not to, like to insult her or humiliate her with something that he made up, or the other, maybe I could see someone saying in the context of a consensual relationship, this was a kind of ongoing accepted practice, but his text suggests that that's not the case. So it seems to me that that he could be in a bit of trouble. And then the question I have, Stephen A., is if you lose a civil case where the standard is lower in terms of the presumption of innocence, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, it's simply the preponderance of evidence, meaning it's more likely they did this than not in a jury's opinion. If it gets that far, and that happens, is that enough now for the NFL to do something because it's not the same standard? I would think the answer is, I would guess yes, especially considering issues along these lines that the NFL has been criticized in the media for in recent years. This looks to me to be extremely serious.
It's very serious. The allegations are very, very serious. And if we're going to be totally honest about it, it's also serious because of Antonio Brown. He hasn't exactly curried favor with the American public over the last several weeks. Now, one has nothing to do with the other. His shenanigans, clownishness, and the manner in which he engaged himself in while he was a member of the Oakland Raiders has nothing to do with this. Him being AWOL with the Pittsburgh Steelers the last game of the regular season, throwing Mike Tomlin under the bus, Juju Smith-Schuster under the bus, that has nothing to do with this. And obviously, being in the United States of America and being American citizens, understanding under the law, you are innocent until proven guilty. So we're not here to engage in judgment. We can't do that because we don't know all the facts. But here's what we do know. The NFL can do that, theoretically. Greg Hardy, Reuben Foster, Adrian Peterson, along with a bevy of others, have been put on the commissioner's exempt list. What does that mean? You get your money, but you are pulled off the field. Kareem Hunt, another individual, you are pulled off the field and not allowed to play at the discretion of the league office led by Commissioner Roger Goodell, because your transgressions and the allegations of potential transgressions were so egregious that whether you're convicted or not, you have clearly engaged in a level of behavior or found yourself in a situation where you've impugned the integrity of the league and you have compromised our brand, the Shield. That's all that the NFL has to concern itself with. It's not all they're going to concern themselves with, but that's all they have to. And that's where the seriousness of this situation comes into play. Here's why. Because you're Antonio Brown. Let's be honest. There was actually a case, if the NFL wanted to suspend him prior to these allegations coming out because of the manner in which he had conducted himself with Oakland.
For several pieces of behavior, for several separate incidents.
So the point is, before this incident occurred, you had the cachet to literally suspend him then, but you let it go. This you can't let go. According to the reports, Brittany Taylor, she's passed the lie detector test. The fact that she's only asking for $75,000 to me is something that works in her favor because clearly she ain't trying to get rich.
It seems principled.
It seems principled. She has, and not only that, she's been very conspicuous in disseminating this information by making sure to let the NFL know, the authorities know that she is available to give whatever information is out there to give. The fact that all these things are aimed in the direction of Antonio Brown, I do think that we're going to be, I think that within the next 24 to 48 hours, we're going to hear that Antonio Brown has been placed on the commissioner's exempt list and not allowed to play for the New England Patriots.
Here's the other thing. And by the way, the argument from Antonio Brown's side could also be, I said it seems principled because of the low amount relatively. He could also make the argument, well, it's principled on my side. I didn't try to settle this, right? But, okay, we'll let the facts come out. I don't want to be unfair.
Sir.
The Patriots, the early reporting had it, were blindsided by this.
Yes.
Now think about this. We're on the air. Remember when we were asking about Antonio Brown all summer. Do you trust him going? Will he make more news on the fan? At a certain point, I said, it keeps escalating and it keeps getting worse. And then and every time we think it looks like he's crazy like a fox, he was really intentionally trying to get somewhere, we have to say, wait a minute. Maybe there's something really wrong here. If the Patriots were blindsided by this, think about what we were asking yesterday. Can you trust him going forward? It seems like you can't even trust him going backward. In other words, if he didn't disclose what was happening during this process and they got blindsided by this, then he hasn't even had to do anything new for him to already be an enormous problem for them. Even if he feels it's a frivolous lawsuit, nevertheless, wouldn't you let your new employer know, hey, this is what's going on with me?
Especially with the Patriots, if anyone's going to do their due diligence. And as you mentioned, Stephen A., I do feel the NFL has been lenient on him. And one thing you mentioned, one of the damning pieces in this, I read the full civil suit, obviously, was that she was asleep. And again, we don't have all the facts. But the other thing that stood out to me is when she said to him, we need to talk about last night. And he said, you made me feel like a rapist.
Not good.
No.
Not good. Listen, the bottom line is that...
Because it's in his own words.
He used the word, I felt like a rapist.
He used those words. And then when we point to far more innocuous things, meaning something separate and apart from all of this, like his behavior with the Raiders, his behavior over the last few months, he's continuously put his foot in his mouth. He's continuously been on social media, whether it's with his words or his actions, to to attach visual evidence to his behavior. I'm not talking about this incident, these allegations. I'm talking about his behavior with the Oakland Raiders. It just seems to be one of those situations where he's really put his foot in his mouth and he's put himself in a very compromising situation. She's coming, and she doesn't seem like she's going to go away. And if that is the case, again, I would be shocked if within the next 24 to 48 hours we don't hear an announcement that Antonio Brown will not be allowed to play for the Patriots. I'll be shocked.
We're not a jury, and we're not privy to all the facts.
Right.
And we don't have instructions from a judge.
That's right.
And we haven't heard any arguments.
Right.
Nevertheless, the kind of conversation that we're having now is the kind of conversations juries have.
Right.
So it is based on the facts that we've seen so far, based on Antonio Brown's own texts, et cetera, some of the circumstantial evidence. This seems to, sometimes you could say, well, this is a frivolous situation. This seems to rise to the level of alarm bells should be going off for Antonio Brown and people in his life about his future, at least immediate
Totally agree
future.
with you. Totally agree with you. But I also would say this. The difference between us and a jury is that a jury is in a courtroom. They've been coached by prosecutors, defendants, the judge itself, benefit of the doubt, preponderance of evidence, et cetera, et cetera. The NFL doesn't have to take that into consideration at all.
They are not a jury. They are not the jury, judge, and executioner.
They are the NFL, and all they have to consider is that, right now, on our 100th year anniversary that we plan on celebrating all year long, you have sullied the reputation of this league. You have to go. That's all they have to draw. That's the only conclusion the NFL has to draw.
And continues to find himself in compromising situations that we know for a fact. All right, we will leave it there. When we come back here on First Take, you don't want to miss why former Pro Bowl quarterback thinks Dak should take a pay cut in Dallas. That's coming up next right here on First Take. If we have any more news on Antonio Brown, we'll keep you up to speed on that as well. Stay here.